FDC in disarray? Is it a make or break moment for the party that wields the first position in the opposition? Well, I'm joined this morning by Owek Israel Mayengo, an analyst, as someone who is seasoned, alongside Mr. Henry Kasacca, another political analyst, to look at the tendencies within FDC and what they mean in the broader picture of Uganda's politics. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. A very good morning.
Very good morning.
A very good morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, I know later in the show, we're promoting something, asking the public to shun Kavera, but we'll get back to that towards the end of the show. But, well, what are the issues at stake in your analysis?
Well, I think the first thing to realize is that we are at a stage of just development. We are also at a stage of contradictions, where the same people who are saying, let's have changes, you know, of leadership, changes of leadership. And when it takes place, people start crying foul. I shouldn't have been changed.
The advocates of change.
The same advocates of change are the ones who are saying they should not be changing at all. Don't you see? This is the controversy that I'm talking about. The irony of it all. What I'm saying is, this is the time when we should be developing the ideas of saying that we have more than one leader. The same one who are saying Museveni has overstayed, are the same one who are saying, I don't want to move out of this place. This is the contradictions. Of course, I have always been accused of being idealistic. And my answer to that is that I see no reason why the Africans always should aim at less than the ideal. As a matter of fact, if I were to organize a party, I would be saying the thing to follow is regular changes. I do not think that FDC lacks people to lead the opposition.
No, but the spirit is questionable.
What spirit?
Did the party president do this
in good spirit?
In good spirit?
Did he do it alone, which is also dictatorial? There must be an organization in the party which sits and they vote and they examine a few candidates and decide who will be the leader of the opposition. If he did not do that, then he's not even the right person to lead a party. He should be doing it.
Of course, he never took it singularly.
Naturally not. I mean, if he did, then he's the wrong fellow to have as the leader of their party. But if he followed, there must be also certain regulations in the party whereby an executive committee or a committee of some sort sits and they say, isn't it time we changed? By the way, does their constitution say anything about leadership of such things? Or is it that it just comes at a time and they say, it's time to change, and they go and change? Of course, there are also arguments that he chose, or that they chose a leader of opposition who is unknown. True, people always prefer to be led by well-known names. That there's no doubt about. Well-known names are considered more reliable, more trustable than less-known names. But that's not so true, because if you were to follow that, you'd wonder where Museveni came from. At the time when he came, nobody knew him, you know? But then eventually, out of doing whatever he has done, one becomes known. Who knows that the new leader of opposition might turn up to be an excellent person? You know, this is African poetry.
So you can't write her off too soon?
No, definitely not.
Henry, let me get to you.
Yes.
With all the tensions brewing in the party, we've had the leader of opposition outgoing, or I don't know, whose fate is yet to be known, because she says she's yet to be formally informed. She's come out to protest the move and also lashed out at the president of FDC for assuming that parliamentary business is an extension of the party. What do you read between the lines?
Well, I think that a number of processes are going on within the FDC. And number one is that they have some internal contradictions which they are trying to manage and which they continue to manage, and some of the developments are interpreted in terms of those internal contradictions. The second is that across all the political parties, there is a disconnect between the party headquarters and parliament. You find that people in parliament normally run like another party. The relationship between the party headquarters, party policies, and party positions in parliament have not been so coherent. So there has been that process which has to be worked on. Then, of course, the other issue is that we are still grappling as a country with the institutionalizing political parties, to have processes clear, to have procedures laid out, and not only being laid out, but understood and appreciated by everybody. So these are some of the critical issues that are taking place. I think that all the parties are undergoing this process. Only that FDC is the current largest opposition political party, and we are focusing so much on it. But even the relations, I mean, all this is playing out, and it points to the question of whether we have internal processes, what are the workings of these processes, are we going to solve these problems through the media, are you going to talk to each other through the media?
Do you look at this reshuffle as a sacking, relieving, or a change of guard?
Well, I think that it's not a sacking. It's more of a change of guard, I would say that, because one, that the legal framework allows for a leader to appoint these people. And don't look at it in terms of just the law and what have you. It has happened in all the other political parties. When there is a political party, there must be coherence. That's why you had the NRM going to amend the constitution when they had problems with the chairman and the secretary general, to ensure that whoever is in the structure of the party is paying their loyalty to the elected leader. If somebody has gone through the delegates conference by democratic processes and standards, that person has got the endorsement of the entire party membership. So there must be a semblance of coherency. It happened in UPC when Obote was here. I remember the delegates conference in Gulu where the party president began appointing the executive members to avoid those contradictions. So it has happened even in the Democratic Party. I think you have seen Honorable Mao putting some people on hold because of some kind of lack of coherence. So what you see is part of that. And the bigger question is, with the change of leadership, and actually I would not tie it to leadership change. I would look at it in terms of institutionalizing the party and also ensuring there's party coherence in all the organs of the party. If that is not going to happen, some of these things are inevitable. It's inevitable.
Is what you see a sign that cracks are emerging within FDC? And if I could again ask the same question as Henry, could it be a change of guard, or it's vindicting some of the people who never supported Amuriat?
If that could be, if that would be the intention, then it's a wrong intention. If it is a vindictive, it's wrong. But if it's a regular change of saying, let's change our leadership, our presence in parliament, there's nothing wrong with that.
Why would you change a good performer, a star performer like a leader of opposition in parliament?
Well, what makes him a star performer? Who knows whether the replacement will not be a star performer? And in any case, as I said at the beginning, isn't it desirable that you make changes every now and then? I do agree that the young lady, Miss Kiza, has been excellent. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I also do realize that we need to involve more and more of our leaders. You know, we need to realize that there is always more than one leader in the party. So,
could this be telling of the emerging cracks within FDC?
No, I don't think so. But of course, I have always told you that it's a temporary party, even by its own name. This is a forum for democratic change. Once the change takes place, the party has nothing more to do. As I have said,
could you say this again?
The same thing as NRM, it's a national resistance movement. Once the resistance ends, there's no more party. the only parties here which you could think, which you could say have an element of permanence is the Democratic Party and UPC.
How about CP?
Even CP. But all these ones which are put together just to fight the national resistance movement. You remember I was one of the founders. The idea was just to fight Obote. There was no idea of permanence.
They are temporary outfits.
These are temporary outfits. So is FDC. And as indeed I went to break up, I would not be surprised at all. They yet to have to create something that one says has an element of permanence and no hurry business. This business of saying now we need this one, now we have to change this one. Remember, there is a little bit of tribalism in all these things as well. I do remember an occasion when I was told about a debate in FDC when debated whether Sam Njuba should be the leader of opposition or not. And there was so much vehemence against Njuba becoming the leader of opposition, being a member of FDC. And they all went for Ogenga Latigo. Now those are the things which are in this African politics of ours, immature politics.
How does the current situation in FDC compare with the situation in other parties?
Well, I could say broadly is that they are all going through a process of party building. We are yet to see more contradictions. The expectations of the public are not yet being met. And the party is trying to master the game. Dealing with all these things at the same time requires a lot of skill and expertise. To deal with internal conflicts, to build the party, to institutionalize processes. Some of these have to be worked on concurrently, but not informing each other directly. So even if I have internal conflicts with you, if I don't agree with you, it does not necessarily mean that I will not appreciate that you are the best person to offer leadership in this case. Even if you don't agree with Amriat, you should ensure that your contribution is strengthening FDC. The idea that you don't agree with somebody, then you stand on the fence and then you are not helping the process move, you are holding people back, you are not pushing them forward, that one is an element that we have to deal with across all the parties.
The relieved members of parliament who've been leading the different committees have been highly rated as star performers. Do you agree?
I agree.
With this assertion?
I agree entirely. I think.
So is replacing them a blunder?
Well, you see, it's the context under which you look at it. It's the context under which you look at it. One, if you have a practice and a culture of replacing people, that is your context. If you are replacing them at such a particular time when there are conflicts, people are likely to interpret this replacement not in terms of routine change, but in terms of vindictive decisions. People are likely to say, well, the Right Honorable Winnie Kiza has performed very well. Why do you change somebody after 5 years? You see, the MPs are asking for 7 years because they spent 2.5 years learning how Parliament behaves. Now, after 2.5 years of investing a lot of time and opportunity in somebody, you get somebody else. So it's a question that has to be discussed within the broader framework of political growth in the country. Where is Ogenga Latigo? He was leader of opposition for 2.5 years. After that position, it's like he has disappeared.
He lost a seat and returned.
He lost a seat and returned. But if 2.5 years of Ogenga Latigo as a very excellent leader of opposition, where is he in the political system? So these positions are not meant to appease people. They offer a platform for people to demonstrate the leadership they can offer. Even if you are not leader of opposition, you can still offer leadership. But you must do that in a framework that allows that. And if the party is going through a process of building that framework, that regardless of being leader of opposition, you can still represent the party. You can still perform for the party. That requires that you must build you must bridge the disconnect between the headquarters and the party structures. I mean, you look at all these developments. We have had 4 leaders of opposition. We had Honorable Wafula Ogutu, we had Ogenga Latigo, we had Honorable Nandala Mafabi, we have had Honorable Winnie Kiza. These are all excellent people.
Yeah, but do you find, let me ask you, do you find any relevance in these positions, like leader of opposition? Does it come with anything in building democratization in this country?
Well, naturally, these are things we've been copying from the Western countries, that a government needs some kind of guidance from other side. not necessarily opposition, but guidance, alternative ways of doing things, not serious confrontation. So that, I think, we are slowly by slowly developing into.
It's a copied culture.
Naturally. The political parties are new to us. I think the first time they ever were mentioned here in 1944, people said it's DP which started it all. No, didn't. It was the Labour Party, led by Daud Sekuma in 1944. It was at that time called the League of African Citizens and Labour Party, registered in 1944. That one went on for some time until the passing away of Daud Sekuma, and then eventually the Democratic Party started. So it's a new sort of culture we are trying to adopt, copied from the West, and we have to now to sort of Africanize it to a good extent so that it fits our conditions. And our conditions are so far, as you know, the Africans know that once you are a chief in the village, you're the chief all the time. Now we have to change that and know that the chief at that time was chief under those circumstances. Today is a chief who gains his strength from the support of the people. And so changes are normal. And as far as leading committees are concerned, when I was in Parliament, I knew that two things were required for being in a committee. One, interest, that one had interest in what the committee does. Two, ability, some knowledge of what the committee is working on. If there is a Parliament committee on social services, and social services include education, you come up and you have been a teacher or a doctor, we say, well, you have an idea of what the committee is about, and at the same time, you have the interest. So those were the main two. Now, these are not such things. Of course, leading the opposition has its perks. One is paid and probably
So
given
perks
a car.
outweigh the service.
Yes, unfortunately. These are elements of poverty mentality. Because I would expect that a member of parliament is able to get a car for himself, But if he says it must come from the parliament, well, that one is too poor to be a member of parliament. He has the poverty mentality in any case, which says, I don't have enough. And this is the poverty mentality which leads to all this corruption. Even when he gets billions, he still feels he's poor. He needs more, and grabs this one and grabs that. That poverty mentality, which the Indian Chopra talks about, is one of our problems. And in any case, it's led by selfishness, which I have been advocating against all the time.
Henry, how relevant are these posts?
No,
Leader of opposition, head, chairperson of a committee.
The positions are important because there are various groups in parliament. But I think what is important in the case of Uganda is that we have a mixed system. We have adopted a parliamentary system where people go to parliament and have their leader there. Then we also have a presidential system where party presidents are not part of parliament. Somebody runs around the country, and after he's not declared the winner, he has to do politics in the streets, in the party headquarters, and they never get the platform of parliament. We have a mixed system. And I think if we choose to have a mixed system, the solution, a long-term solution, would be to have some amendments in our constitution to allow an opposition party nominate at least 3 of its leaders to come as ex-officials in parliament. There will be no question of changing the leader of opposition if the party leader or some other leader in the party would come to parliament as an ex-official. So after people have come from where they come to parliament, now the leader of opposition has to be selected among members of parliament. So you somehow create another power structure. But if we agree that we have a mixed system and we amend the constitution to allow for the party like FDC to nominate 3 people to come to parliament as ex-officials, and most probably these will be the leaders of the party. So if Honorable Amriat would come to parliament, he will be the leader of opposition because he's the president of FDC. Now, when you don't have that, you seemingly create another group in parliament which is being appointed by people, and now we begin looking at their role in terms of the benefits that come with those positions. And what disappears is the role of FDC in these positions. How are these platforms amplifying the positions of the Forum for Democratic Change?
argues that these are delegated powers, that he has the right to choose who should sit in there. You find this appropriate?
Well, I will not comment on how they are elected. I think to me the most fundamental issue is FDC should lead the opposition in parliament. The best way under our current system and under the circumstances of people waiting for 2.5 years and performing under 2.5 years, something is likely to happen, it will be more stabilizing to amend the constitution, create some 3 extra seats. We can do this. We are always expanding parliament for no reasons. All the ministers are ex-officials. If the opposition political party is allowed under our rules to nominate some extra 3 people to come to parliament as ex-officials, then that will stabilize the parliament. They would nominate somebody who can stabilize parliament, who can unify parliament, who will be cutting across all the various divisions. But most importantly, you could even find their leaders coming themselves to parliament. It will be different if a leader has a political platform within the political system, leave alone addressing people in the streets. And those are platforms being created by itself, but a platform where government can respond to what Amriat is saying, where government can respond to what Besige is saying. But this is not happening now.
What's Mayengo? Do the choices that Patrick Amriat brings on board in a way demonstrate his agenda, his political agenda?
Does he have his own political agenda? Yes, this is one of those problems that we have had, of personalizing everything. That DP is now Mao. That UPC is now who is UPC now? Akena?
Oh, Akena.
not Otunu. Okay, Akena. One of the two.
There is a dispute.
One of the two. This personalization of groups, like parties, is also, I think, wrong. You know, there should be a way of saying, this is what the party stands for. This is what the party has drawn up as its agenda, and what we have here is just a leader to carry out what the party.
In your opinion, when you look at the new cabinet, the new list
of these ones,
yes, what does FDC stand for now?
How do I know?
No, when you look at the personalities, Mubarak Munyagwa being given a juicy post, a juicy committee, deputized by another activist, Moses Kasivante. At the top, there is Awol Ochan, who is known to be a sympathizer to defiance.
The leader of opposition is known to be a sympathizer of defiance. And defiance originated where? In FDC, isn't it? Eh? So
because in FDC there are tendencies. There is the pro-defiance and the compliance.
I thought the defiance died. Is it still there? I mean, what shows that there is any defiance still going on? In any case, of what value is it at the moment? What is required is to organize the party in such a way that it can compete successfully to a leadership position. This business of defiance is just, some of these ones are only words. These are slogans, you know. They're no better than wealth creation is another slogan.
Can FDC survive this moment? Because it looks like the rift is so huge.
No, it will survive. It will survive. It will go through this process.
What are the chances that there's likely to emerge a breakaway?
The chances are 50-50, depending on how they manage the situation. But secondly, it also depends on what it takes to create another force. In Uganda, people have tended to just withdraw. Even when they don't agree with you, they don't form anything else. They just withdraw and say, okay, you fail and we see. You do what you can do. So the idea that you can have a breakaway is not so Ugandan in our contemporary politics. People are not breaking away in Uganda. They just stay in there and freeze. They stay in there, they don't move, they don't cooperate, but they just hold your position. And they say we are FDC because the law does not allow us to change. But they will never attend any meeting, they will never contribute an idea, they will never oppose anything. They will be speaking in the media against what you are doing, but they will not break away. This has happened in all the parties. So the idea that you can have a breakaway in that kind of context requires so much.
So what
You
awaits,
cannot-
what awaits Power with this new force that is out to oppose him now?
Well, I'm not sure it is out to oppose him. I think Power is still dealing with the issues he has been dealing with right from when he took over.
This is another challenge.
He still has to deal with issues of internal party cohesion. He has to deal with managing internal contradictions. That is not a Power issue. Even Mugisha Muntu had that challenge. So these contradictions have never been resolved in the party. The only issue is that they keep on taking different formations. They keep on getting more complicated. So as you're dealing with this one now comes up. Now, as you are discussing Kasacca, you are looking at the juiciness of Kasacca, forgetting that Kasacca is there as an oversight for protect Ugandans. You should be asking whether Kasacca is now going to protect taxpayers' money by ensuring it has that big oversight. But the focus is this Kasacca is very juicy now. This one is going for a juicy one. So we lose the big picture on what the committee has to do.
But there are always slots where you say this one has a big slot.
What makes it get a big slot? Why is Kasacca having a big slot and the committee on human rights does not have a big slot? It's the amount of work that is involved. It is if Kasacca and Public Accounts Committee are very busy committees, it's because of how much work is involved in that committee. So when you are deploying in these committees,
not the cake that comes with it.
not the cake. You see, when you look at the cake, we lose the bigger picture, and that's why we begin fighting for the cake. And eventually, the Ugandans are going to lose each time you fight for the cake, because the cake will never get finished. People will always get their piece, and you can get your piece for 2.5 years, and you eat it and it will get finished.
Well, before we take a break, Honorable, do you think the likes of Katuntu have been overrated by saying that, you know, these are competent persons whose replacement is a huge blunder, the country is going to miss them?
I think that's the wrong view of saying there is anyone who is too big to be replaced. That's the wrong view I have been advocating. We must hold the idea that there are more than several people in this country capable of doing those jobs. And insisting
did
that
you find Katuntu impeccable?
Impeccable? You mean blameless?
Yes.
Of course,
In the way he did his work.
There are some curiosities naturally. For example, there was so much, you know, hula baloo about the handshake, the 6 billion shilling matter. And the public must have spent billions trying to find out where the 6 billion went. What was the conclusion of this? Nothing. But then the Katuntu should have been able to tell the public what actually were the conclusion of his findings. So far he hasn't. Maybe he will. But when? He was going to say, it's no longer my job. Ask Munyagwa, what's his name again? Mubaraka Mugati Babata. Sort of a funny name. But he could do the thing, you know. We need to.
Do you find him capable?
A guy from Cambridge University? Who has ever expected a fool to come from Cambridge? He must be bright. There's no doubt about it. He may act funny, but I'm sure he has the intellect that can do things. Let's wait and see. I do not wish to ever believe that we can only have one. This is one of those things that we must have. But there is something which we are overlooking. How did Amriat make these changes to the extent that Ms. Kiza knew nothing about it? That means that there must be an inner group in the party which makes decisions, and important people like the leader of opposition know about the changes when they have already been announced. How come that Winnie Kiza is saying, I have yet to know about it. I'm only hearing about it from the media. Well, that shows that there is improper working arrangement in the party.
Amriat says he tried to reach out to them.
Who is them?
They stayed away.
Who is them?
The persons who've been dropped.
Who dropped them? It's not he. It's a committee that should be doing this. You know, they sit down if they have an executive committee for the party. Sit down and say, fellows, I think it's time to change. We have been having these leaders in parliament for the last 2 years. can we make a change? Who is the better one to do this? Who is the better one to do that? And they are, in effect, they are developing their members all around.
Well, we're taking a very quick break. We'll return, continuing to connect dots on the recent reshuffle that has left a bitter aftertaste in the mouth of especially the persons who've been dropped. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. We are still looking at the political dynamics in FDC in the aftermath of the recent reshuffle that left the leader of opposition dropped and bitter, plus several others who are now criticizing the leader for not being too politically foresighted in this and not looking at things in a very objective manner. But well, Henry, when we look at the bitterness that is coming from the other IO, plus of course the new appointments that are arousing some bit of joy, do we look at this as purging or rewarding?
Well, I think that the way you categorize may make us lose the bigger picture.
But there is some bit of purging.
It's not necessarily purging, but I think what is
coming with the argument that whoever supported Muntu, except Semujunganda, has been dropped.
Why? Why has Semuju been maintained? Didn't he support General Muntu?
Maybe he mended fences with Amoriat.
I think it's not about mending fences. I think what you should be looking at broadly is that after the elections, how did FDC go on? If you are making the argument that whoever supported General Muntu was dropped, and Semuju has never denounced General Muntu, Semuju agreed that yes, we went into an election, the people elected Poa, and we are going to move forward with Poa. What makes him unexceptional? So I think even when you have to qualify that argument that people who supported so and so have been dropped. Dropped from what? Maybe they dropped themselves. Maybe you find that the party has been. You have to look. Which Tiwa talked about it. How comes that somebody says I didn't know about these things? To me, that is not the important thing. What comes to my mind is how are these people working? This is not the only thing that you should be. I mean, these ideas should be going through a process, and we expect you to be among the top leaders who will be consulted on anything. So if you don't know, before I comment on that, I have to first step back and look at the process and do our working. So if that has not been moving very well, it is a sign that maybe things are not moving very well. But the overriding thing is coherence within the party to ensure that there is one party, FDC. Which party will be in parliament, which party will be in headquarters. If the members have chosen defiance, let them do their defiance in parliament. They will find room for that defiance. If the people have chosen, we have to take this strategy. And I think what we have
is this the lot that embraces, that seems to be carrying forward the defiance campaign?
You know, I don't want to comment on the defiance because people look at defiance in terms of the English word. They do not look at it politically. When others talk about defiance, they are talking about it politically. And many people comment on defiance in terms of the English word. You are defying what? You are doing this. Yes, qualify that by saying we are defying illegal things. We are defying unlawful things. We are defying corruption. We are defying this. Now, if people have chosen that line of path, good luck. Let them go through. Let's not create an excuse that we failed their defiance campaign. If people have chosen this path, let them take that path. So I think what is important is that coherence within the party, regardless of the differences you have, is very important. And it can happen. People have tolerated, you require a lot of courage to tolerate. Even if you don't like Poa, even if you don't like Winnie Kiza, even if you think people did not support you, you must have the ability to look beyond and see FDC overriding. The public interest, I see the most unfortunate thing is that all this debate on FDC now in the media is not enhancing the profile of the party. The people should be discussing FDC and it will be giving FDC the public confidence and trust that this is a viable political party. But when you see all this happening, you have to think hard to ensure that no matter what decisions you're taking, no matter how you conduct yourselves, you must be able to put FDC at the core. If you are having a disagreement with Njala at this level, please ensure that you don't discredit the entire NBS. If you're having a disagreement with so and so, don't address it in that manner. And this is why it is important for processes to begin moving. The party must be institutionalized. If you are disagreeing, please go and disagree inside. If there is no space for you, we should know that there is no space for you. So that is the kind of situation. It is more of an institutional development process. It has to do with coherence within all the party organs.
Is FDC going down with these differences?
It's not going down. It's not going down. I think but the only thing I can say, it is not progressing. I think the members still support FDC, and they still need to be inspired more to work up.
Well,
every time you mention the word defiance, it reminds me of what Churchill used to say after the Second World War. He used to say, in defeat, defiance. In victory, magnanimity. So defiance appears to be an acceptance of defeat.
The bitter pill.
So in any case, looking at whether these occurrences are going to lead to the split of FDC is an indication that the party itself is still very weak. I mean, if things like these ones can be suspected of ability to cause a split, then it means the party is not quite together yet. And there are indications that the party is not working cohesively. I mean, if things like, I didn't even know that there were changes that suggest that they were not even going to their headquarters. They didn't know what's happening. They are too much involved in what is paying, because the party pays nothing. Parliament pays something. and I think there should be an arrangement whereby whatever they gain out of their offices in Parliament, they remit a little bit back to the party. Probably they have not been doing that. Probably they're doing it. I don't know. I don't belong to any of these parties at the moment myself. And I don't exactly know. We only have suspicions of where the money comes from, you know. Where does the huge wealth of NRM come from? And we always have a suspicion that they must be having a little siphon on our public money somewhere, you know, which is being, you know, we are being cheated slowly by slowly without noticing.
Do you imagine there is a BCJ factor in these reshuffles, in these tendencies?
Oh, it's being there depends on his relationship with the current leadership. If the three were put together, BCJ, Mugisha Muntu, and Amriat, would they agree to the changes which have taken place? Probably not. And that also is another element. Do they have the party cohesiveness, whereby they can say, yes, we have a specific goal and we are all driving towards it without selfishness? Remember, there's an element of selfishness in all these things. And it's a huge element. Leave alone the element of saying, I am the only one who is capable of doing this, which is also a misfortune on our part.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, does Amriat come off as someone who has a grip on the party? Or he still looks shaky?
I think he has the grip on the party. He has the grip no matter, even if the party is shaking, but he has the grip. He's in charge, and he has demonstrated this. What he has done, this is just one of the things he has done, I think, to exercise the powers given to him.
Do you find it too bold to sack Winnie Kiza, who is popular?
It is not too bold. It is not too bold. We had Nandala Mafabe, we had Ogenga Latigo, we had Wafula Ogutu. This is a practice we have to build and agree that, yes, it's not too, I mean, is it too bold to sack so and so? It's not too bold. Let's not phrase it that way. You are trying to create an impression that there are two yardsticks. There's the yardstick of the party members and there's the yardstick of the public. If the people and the media have a yardstick of Winnie Kiza, the party has a yardstick of Winnie Kiza.
Do you find the law just dispensable anyhow?
No, I would not say it's not dispensable anyhow. But I think that in a country that like is ours, which is growing in a democracy, which is building institutions, that is why I have made a recommendation, even in the last constitutional review process, that let us amend the constitution, remove this idea of having somebody from within parliament for 2.5 years, create more stability in the party. When you do not stabilize the process, you are not helping the party grow. Now for 2.5 years, yes, Winnie has stabilized, she's now a respected leader of opposition, she's very active. Now you are having another person who has to begin by mending faces, trying to reach out to Winnie, and that's another. After 1.5 years, these MPs are going for elections. They will not have any business in parliament.
After 2.5 years of Winnie Kiza, what would be your praise of her and Katuntu specifically?
No, I think the two are excellent. I would say they have been excellent legislators. They have used their portfolios to our full expectations.
What do they write home about?
Their achievements.
Like?
You see, in many cases, when you're assessing democracy, you don't look at events. You can say this handshake did not do anything. But the handshake was just 6 billion. We have lost more than 6 billion. One person took 100+ billion. What the process of the handshake did, it got more Ugandans involved in our money is being lost. It had an impact on all Ugandans who followed that process.
I thought Ugandans needed recovery of this money.
Leave alone.
More than awareness.
The recovery can come, but their position that their money is being abused has been implanted.
Anyone can do that.
So anybody can do that.
Yes.
But it has implications on the entire political processes. If people are getting more aware that your money is being lost in dubious measures, then you have to empower them to take action onto that issue. It's not simply to cover the handshake.
No, just give me one landmark for which you will forever, eternally be grateful to Katuntu.
Honestly, if you have followed Parliament closely and you want to assess Parliament, you do not use crude indicators. Let me first tell you this. You don't use crude indicators. There are people whose committees, and because of their leadership, has given Parliament a semblance of oversight. The weakness of Parliament cannot be blamed on one person. It's the broader institutional framework. If I am the chair who chairs people who are not going to agree to recommendations, I have limitations. But the fact that I can lead the process that can create confidence that Parliament can exercise some oversight. The decisions of Parliament has made so many decisions, not only on Kasacca. There are so many other decisions that have been made, and Parliament can only make recommendations. I think the fundamental point here, to empower people like Kantutu who work so hard, is to safeguard the decisions of Parliament by having an amendment that the decisions of Parliament shall be binding. As of now,
He has done an incredible job.
Incredible. The weakness he has.
He did not, however, emphasize what we should be learning out of the handshake. Out of the handshake, we had to know that there are some arbitrary methods the president is using. Did Parliament agree to the handshake? It was some kind of a personal decision of the president saying, I'm so pleased with the work that has been done by these people, that the lady who did the duplicating, the one who photostat the papers, I'm giving him 20 million shillings for having done that. Now, this type of thing is outside the rules of common sense.
But Oistiwa, what the committee of Kasacca recommended is that government must have a streamlined way of dealing with handshakes.
So in that case,
it recommended that.
If it
did not recommend that there are arbitrary ways. You see, as a committee now, when it becomes a committee, it moves away from the political judgment.
That recommendation is very ordinary.
By recommending,
we needed something more extraordinary.
By recommending,
whatever extraordinary you needed, it will end as a recommendation. The resolutions of Parliament, whatever Parliament decides, we still have a problem. They are not binding on government. That is fundamental. Even if you say everybody recover that money, they will look at you and say you can't do anything.
Do you imagine that the new law and Munyagwa specifically would be stepping in big shoes?
I don't think so. I think that he's going to get the hang of it and know what has to be done. I mean, all these ones are test pieces. we need to test these guys. If the government changed at the moment and FDC became the government, wouldn't Munyagwa be one of the people to engage in one of the ministries? The question in this particular case, would he a proper man to appoint Minister of Finance or of Constitutional Affairs? I know that when the party changes, when the government changes, even some of the names of these ministries might change. You know, they have been so arbitrary. Every president who comes in creates his own ministries, This is, I don't know when we are going to grow out of this, you know.
Why is Munyagwa being a subject of discussion?
Because I think it's been unknown. People don't understand.
Why do you think Munyagwa is a subject of contention?
I personally have never seen him.
That is one of the reasons, but I think the other one is that he has come onto the political scene in a given way. The public has a given picture of Munyagwa. They have this comedian person of Munyagwa. He wants to dramatize everything. He has that aspect. The public has not seen Munyagwa, the other side of Munyagwa. So people are now judging the person they see. Just like you thought Katobugama could not be a member of parliament because he's a dramatist and he's always making funny jingles on radio. But when he goes to parliament, he's a different person. So I think that why you're interested in that is one. Secondly, you're interested in that Munyagwa because you are trying to look at Munyagwa in the mirror of Katuntu. You are trying to look at this. A committee of parliament and all the committees of parliament will be led by the chair. If you look at all the questions that are being asked by committees, most of the members are adding supplementary questions. The chair has a lot of work in that he has to look at the details of all the issues they're going to investigate, look for all the right questions, and set the pace for the discussion.
Could it be that perhaps the president of FDC wanted to downplay the role of Kasacca? No wonder he brought someone with a clown background.
No. I don't know why you want to say it's downplaying. No, it is not that. I don't want to look at the reasons why he did that. I'm trying to explain to you that you want to measure this person in terms of the other person. There are people who package themselves in a given way. The public knows one side of Munyagwa. Nobody has taken trouble to go and study Munyagwa politically, to see Munyagwa in parliament, to see Munyagwa as division mayor, to understand the other side of Munyagwa. So we only know one side, and we are now assessing Munyagwa based on Abdu Katuntu, who we only know one side. That Katuntu who is focused on the issues, who is going to dig out the issues, who will spearhead a process, even in a very contentious issue. They lead it to
the final
not even the Right Honorable Kadaga, not even the Right Honorable Rakana Rugunda, not even the Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi, as chairperson of any committee of parliament, can lead parliament unless you have addressed the limitations of parliamentary decisions.
Well, at a broader scale.
I look at Munyagwa as the Americans looked at Ronald Reagan. He was a movie star, for all practical purposes, a kind of a comedian, turning up to be in the White House. What did he do? Weren't they satisfied to a good extent? So much so that they re-elected him? Let's wait and see.
So we'll be surprised.
We may be surprised. As I said, that Munyagwa is just unknown.
Looking at things broadly, what should we be examining now in the broader scheme of the geopolitics of Uganda?
I think that one of the matters to talk about is this idea of saying that once one is a president of a political party, one is the presidential candidate for the party. That one is a fault which, once rectified, will lead to this idea of ending the breakup of parties. Once one says, I haven't been, I don't have a chance of being nominated as the presidential candidate, let me start my own party. And you find the DP breaking away. There is a little group here, DP, is it called Justice or something like that? And another one, just for one purpose. The president is the presidential candidate. Now that is what must be given up. The alternative is to say we have several possibilities. And at a certain time, we'll have a nomination conference whereby several will stand up and will go on thinning down, deciding, coming for as they call it here, until we'll come up with a candidate.
Well, FDC was widely regarded as the alternative. Are they losing that mantle?
It's too early to call. It's too early to make that judgment. Because of this decision, it happened when Nandala Mafabi left. You remember there was that discussion when Muntu replaced Nandala Mafabi. People thought FDC was going to get finished. But what is most fundamental?
And what is the strength? Where does FDC derive its strength?
You
That other parties have failed to take up.
From the numbers that are elected are declared winners. You see, when the strength of a party, we are using very funny yardsticks of people who have been declared by returning officers as the true reflection of the strength of the party. I think you could go ahead and create more variables on the strengths. Look at the voters, look at the candidates a party has been fielding, and then you can be able to judge the strength of the party.
Well, we're getting out of here, and as we promised our viewers, we have our guest speaking out against Kavera. Maybe I'll begin with you. The dangers of NBS is spearheading a campaign against Kavera. You could be part of this.
There are more Kaveras in the United States than any other country could have. But you don't find them on the streets. You don't find them blocking sewage systems. You don't find them preventing the fertility of the land. So just, it's a requirement, I think, that the public must be sensitized in the use of the Kavera. Just saying it's forbidden is not enough. In any case, there are so many rules, there are so many decisions which are normally made by the president, and he announces, and you wonder whether they can be really they're enforceable. I used to remember a judge in America who used to say, there will not be enough jails, there will not be enough policemen, there will not be enough lawyers, there will not be enough force to enforce a law not supported by the public. Now, when the president just wakes up and he says, all tinted windows in cars are forbidden, and you see most of the government cars all have tinted windows. So this Kavera thing is the same thing. People will eventually learn to, if they will have regional leaders, regional leaderships in every location, and those ones are saying, please clean where you are and don't just splash the Kavera anywhere. They will eventually learn and realize that we can do away with them. We may not do away with them, but we'll know how to manage them and control them and make use of them.
Thank you. Thank you.
A process, by the way, people who have not known about a process called thermolysis, whereby plastics are melted and turned into diesel. Now, this is something
Is an opportunity.
which people should
Well,
know.
your take on the Kavera campaign.
The Kavera campaign, first of all, I want to appreciate it. And secondly, I also want to encourage all the leaders across the country. Let us try to help people. If they can't do away with the Kavera, let them use it in the right way. We must encourage people who are making buveras in this country to ensure that they reach out to the public with the idea of recycling the Kavera.
So it's a permanent feature, but we must use it responsibly.
Under the circumstances, we must use it responsibly, and we must encourage that responsible behavior towards the Kavera. If you take a Kavera home, please let us agree that as a village we dispose of the Kavera in a given position, point, and the people can come and pick them and take them to rightful disposal.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We've exceeded a little our time, but coming up next is Tamale Mirundi with Honorable Sir Mr. Simon Muyanga Lutaya. Good morning.